Adam Christ for My MMA News, being joined by Eric Chase here at 302 BJJ ahead of his fight against Nate Maul at Maverick 16. It's going down in just a couple of weeks. First, I got to thank my man for joining me. It's our first time talking on record, man. How are you, brother?
On record, brother. Good.
I appreciate you taking the time, first and foremost, man. I got to ask. So I've been seeing you in the 302 grind lately, and you've made your name known. You know, you've gotten in there, you've gotten your kickboxing bouts, you're undefeated in MMA. And it seems like you're bringing your striking and your jiu-jitsu together seamlessly. Tell us how it's been since you started training to now.
Well, I mean, I started with jiu-jitsu, man. And over the time of grappling, I really wanted to get into fighting. And, man, I started kickboxing. And then once I got the hang of it, fell in love with it. And my coach put me in there for a kickboxing bout first just to test those waters. And didn't get the win in my kickboxing bout, but that was a crazy fight week. I had 3 different opponents, all that stuff, so I ended up going up against a really tough guy in Brock. But I felt comfortable, man. I felt really comfortable. I had only been kickboxing 6 months at that point, going up against a guy who had his first fight before I even knew what MMA or UFC was.
Right.
So,
and you did well against him.
Yeah, man. I had a good fight against him. Dropped a unanimous decision, but I felt I was in there the entire time. I didn't agree with the 30-27, but it is what it is, and made me a better fighter, man. I learned a lot, and I went in and then continued my career from there.
So before we get into your fight with Nate, I want to talk a little bit about what got you into fighting, because like I said, this is our first time talking on record. I know a little bit about the story, but I don't know the full story. What brought you into martial arts from the get-go, and what made you want to, obviously you mentioned getting into the fight game, but what made you progress to where you are now? Well, where did it start? What's the journey?
Well, when I started, man, I did karate when I was young. I did karate for a couple years, and I always enjoyed the idea, and I never really took the step to get into a gym. Went on some different paths, and then my one friend who was really into it had an epiphany. He wanted to come in, and he just kind of dragged me into a jiu-jitsu class, and he ended up falling off a couple months, man, and I just got hooked on just the whole atmosphere of everything, man. The competition just really rose into me. I've always been an athlete. I've always done different, between basketball and track and field and all that stuff. But it was different, man. I fell in love with it immediately, and just went off from there.
So talking about your opponent, Nate Maul, what do you know about him? I want to start by saying this. You're never one to shy away from somebody that has the experience against you. This guy, Nate Maul, is another one. And like you said, Brock, the person you faced before, another one. So you're never afraid to get in there, test your talents against somebody that might have a little bit more experience than you. Nate being another one of those guys. What do you know about him?
Well, I know that I had heard he's got 6 or 7 kickboxing fights, somewhere around there. It's hard to find out kickboxing records and stuff, but I've seen some stuff. I think he's had his first fight again before I even started training. But everyone I've fought has had their first fight before I stepped into a gym. And the same thing with my last fight in Kenny Dowdy. He had his first fight, man, 4 years ago, which is before I started training. And we saw that win, and same thing with Nate's. But we're going to go from there.
Does that bother you at all? I'm curious. And I wasn't trying to cut you off, but it's just one of those things that, you've mentioned it, we've talked about it obviously, but I'm curious, it just doesn't seem to faze you, not even the slightest.
No, man, it motivates me. Really? It's a weird feeling because it excites me almost. If I feel like I'm going up against an opponent who's not game, I lose a little bit of that that excitement from it. Still motivated, but I lose a little bit of that excitement. And so I love it, man. I love it when I get in there against a guy who's got experience, because I know I got to be sharp, because if I make a mistake, then it could be over with the experience that they bring. And I love it too, especially when I get the win, because then you earn that. You earn that grind. You know you outworked them.
Every step.
You know every step of the way you had it against you, and you're able to climb that mountain and end up on top.
So I was just talking to one of your other teammates that's going to be on this card, Devin Estes, and we were talking a little bit about 302 and what it's done for her. Now I want to ask you the same question. Since you've been in 302, what has it done for you? 1, as a fighter, 2, as a man.
It's changed my whole life, man. 302 is my family. This is my home. I have made friends that have lasted a lifetime. My entire mental aspect of just life in general, through martial arts and through 302, through the people I've met here, has changed. It's really grown me into a person, and just away from the physical athleticism and the skills that I've learned, the techniques that I've learned here. Like I said, it's really directed me in the right path, and you can't buy that, man. You can't buy that. That's just something that you find and you grow into.
How do you think this fight's going to go? Because I said a little bit earlier in the interview, you've made the seamless transition with your striking and jiu-jitsu where you make everything work, and it's you never know where you're going to go. And that's a dangerous thing to have in your arsenal.
Yeah, man. So with that, that set, man, that being able to strike and be able to grapple, being able to wrestle, with that comes the ability to go in there and just play my game. Just go in there and not have to force whatever I'm doing. Go in there and strike a little bit, wrestle a little bit, whatever is going in there and feeling in there, man. A lot of people go in with these set game plans, and I think you have to have a little bit of a game plan, have an idea. You don't need to have a delusion that you're going to go in there, and strike with the best and do crazy stuff and win, but you have to go in there and feel comfortable and use your techniques that, work for you in the gym and in training and stuff like that. So that's where my head is at, that I can go in there and I'm able to do whatever I need to do to get that win.
And talking about having your teammate Devin on the card, it's going to be you, it's going to be Devin. You're going to have the whole 302 atmosphere, and it's not necessarily the longest trip away. So I'm sure you're going to have a ton of people there to support. What does that mean for you when you have the crowd just sitting there barking off for you and your teammates, your friends, everybody? What's that do for you, man?
Man, it fires me up, man. Like I said, I'm in there because I want to be there. I'm in there because I love it, and just having that support back home with my family, my friends, man, that just gets me going. It's again that motivation, that factor of that drive, that excitement that it brings with me, man. And I love that. I really love that. A lot of people feel that pressure and they can't handle it. I feel like they have to win and they get tight and then they lose, and I don't really get that, man. I get the excitement, and it really amps me up and puts me to my the best of my ability.
So breaking this down just a little bit on paper, you've had some of your kickboxing. He's had a pretty decent amount of kickboxing bouts, but you're undefeated in MMA. He's making his MMA debut.
Yeah.
So when it's on the night, how do you think that's going to mix and match? Because on paper, he would be the seemingly predominant kickboxer.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to bring. You know what I mean? You have no idea. So it's almost like you can see where he's coming from. You don't know what you're going to bring. How do you think it's going to go?
Well, I think he's going to go in there. I think he's going to be relaxed. He's got the fights. He's got he's got the nerves down. So which is good, man. I get to go in there and I get to have this technical battle with him and being able to go in there and, like I said, do what I do, and he does what he does, and may the best man come out with their hand raised. So
it's coming up in a couple weeks, man.
Yeah.
So if I get a prediction out of you, how do you get your hand raised on fight night?
So I don't like predictions too much, man, because I have 15 to 20 predictions in my head. With both of my other fights, man, I don't have one technique that I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna get him with this. I have 20 techniques.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get him with this. I could hit him with this. I could get this submission. I could get this. There's so many other ways to finish, and I feel like if I put that prediction, man, it's never going to be as I predict. So.
Rely on many instead of one.
Exactly.
I like that.
Go in there with a bunch of different angles, and one of them gets through. So.
All right, Eric. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, man. Best of luck on fight night.
Thank you, Adam.
And I look forward to it, man. Eric Chase, he goes up against Nate Maul at Maverick 16 coming up in just a couple of weeks. We're here at 302 BJJ. For Eric Chase, I'm Adam Christ. Keep it locked to mymmanews.com for all your fight news needs.